Hello, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks to you guys who are on Patreon. Really happy to be growing all of this with you all. Slowly but surely, not really in a big rush, but definitely looking forward to the direction that we're heading. So first, before we begin, we're going to start talking more about divine love, a little bit more about twin flames, twin souls. And I also wanted to remind you that on Wednesday, this Wednesday, we've got the second class that is happening for Remembering Your Wholeness, and it is all about falling in love with your sacred shadow. Really, we're going to be working with our shadow. We're going to be teasing it apart, and ideally I want to support everybody in becoming efficient and proficient at resolving your shadow moments as they rise, because resolving our shadow is how we come into a stage of inner union. And so the shadow work is important, as we all know, but we're going to be also understanding it as this is all part of our wholeness. And dividing from ourselves does not equal the wholeness and the totality of who we are in our highest expressions. So I hope you can join us. That is going to be 5:30 Central Time. Link will be in the my blog post that I'll link below, and the Patreon link as well. If you can't join us, you'll be able to purchase it. If you join us or register by Tuesday, it's just by donation, right? So it's like you pick the value of what this means for you in your life, pay the donation. After that, it will be on Patreon for a steady, like a whatever cost, steady cost, whatever the word is I'm looking for. So yeah, so hope to see you one way or the other and connect with you on that topic. So as we talk today, we're going to piggyback again on the last twin flame video that I did yesterday, I believe it was. And again, it's building the foundation, building the phases and stages of understanding the field in which I'm holding this in order to support all of us in up-leveling our romantic relationships, and yet recognizing more than ever now that we have a vision, right? We have a vision, we have templates that hold very specific qualities of that divine union, where we can begin to ascend through going deeper within and starting to live through the heart, starting to live through love. And this is also really the vehicle for divine union. So first, what I want to talk a little bit about is just love, right? Romantic relationships and love. I mean, who doesn't recognize love, romantic love, we're going to just focus on that, as being one of the most powerful experiences we can have. And that romantic love can be, even in its tragic phases and stages, right? So the love is always seeking to be expressed. Love, which is the fabric of all life, is always seeking to be known. The way that we have been programmed as humans for thousands of years is we open our heart more easily through pain. We open our heart more easily through suffering, right? We see that when there are great disasters, right? People's hearts open in compassion and come together in community. Now, with relationship, we do open pretty quickly in the beginning. But most of us, once we open and once we start getting closer to someone, there's a way in which it kind of gets a little bit numbed out. There's a way in which there are subtle, unconscious ways in which we start closing our heart down. Now, this may not really be as true in first loves or when we're young, because we haven't really gone through the deep heartbreak and heartache yet. We haven't really gone through the opening ourselves up to that vulnerability and then feeling the pain of that. Coming together is still in its phase of innocence and unknown. And most of us feel like it's just going to be forever. And then the separation happens again, right? And I talked about this in the last video. I've talked about it before in other videos as well. And everybody talks about this. So, there's that fall, right? That initial separation, we could say, from the universal force, right? And then there's that separation that happens when we're born. And once we are birthed, most of the time, we already start feeling that separation from the mother. And then we start seeking that relationship, that partnering as we get older. Hormones kick on, right? And our deep, deep, deep innate survival of the species, DNA is activated. And then there's chemicals and chemistry and all of our biology that is geared towards relational intimacy. And we feel the power of all of this through ages of myths and stories. The prince that comes to awaken Sleeping Beauty or rescues the princess in the tower. And so we start seeing the play of the masculine and feminine dualities in myth, fairy tale, folklore stories. And over time, right, we listen to music. And so much of music is really about love and loss, right? The love that's found and the pain from the loss. And you can listen to one of those love songs if you've gone through the heartache and heartbreak, which most everybody has, and your heart will be opened through that memory of both the love and the pain. We get into arguments in relationship. We get into fights. And what happens? Then the heart opens at the tail end of the pain, right? Because, like I said at the beginning, we tend to start to shut down because we haven't really learned to live vulnerably, openly, centered in ourself, and intimately. That isn't something that we're taught, right? Those are very different intelligence quotients than just our thoughts and the way that we believe and think things should be. These are much deeper. They're soul connected. They're soul encoded. And so love songs, romantic movies, all of that hold the great power that we're all seeking for love. We're all seeking to love and be loved. And even the most divided from love that a person can be, disconnected from love, disconnected from their embodied experience of love, probably through their own deep pain and suffering and disconnection. Maybe they never had it. Maybe they never experienced it. And yet, love will still try to find a way to be enlivened within us. At the heart of all of the mystery teachings through ancient times is love. And it is that alchemy between the polar opposites, the duality of those forces, right, of the magnetic and electric, right? The magnetic of the earth, the electric of the heavens. And we're always dancing between this Mother Earth and the Heavenly Fathers. The primordial Mother and Father, right, that have always existed, is a dance that we are always living in. And there are many archetypes and expressions and variations of love in these primal forces, and these forces are elemental as well. And as we begin to move more in our evolutionary process, more and more into divine union, we're seeing again that divine union beyond just the relational union is this consistent alchemizing anything that pulls us away from love, anything that divides us into lower density thought forms and consciousness that cannot hold the higher frequencies of love. So let's just look at, karmic relationships. I think I've said in the past, and I don't want to necessarily negate what I'm saying, but I want to reframe it, and maybe I want to refine something I said in the past. So karmic love, when we are in trauma bonded relationships, right? Or when we are in karmic cycles, particularly of those initial phases of healing and resolving, right? Most commonly those childhood wounds or divisions from the mother or the father, right? And then those play out in our relationships, but they go back further. They go back karmically, right? They go back to deeper, bigger, multiple karmic wounds that then are expressing through this lifetime. And there's chemistry that goes on, right? There's chemicals that get activated that strengthen karmic or strengthen trauma bonds, right? Just as there's chemistry that happens in our biology when we are activating that bonding from the heart. All of these are love. They're just denser forms of love. So I think in the past I made the comment that, I've had relationships when I was younger that were very destructive, and that wasn't really love. And, afterwards I kind of thought, well, I don't really know if that was accurate to my perception as I said that. I think that they're always love. If they opens our heart, it's love. Now, the love might be oddly wired. The love might be wired towards pain. right? Which is a big distortion. And yet, love is trying to happen. Our hearts are trying to open. We are trying to come in to a place of union, of deep connection, of bonding. And, the Grail mysteries and the mystery teachings, the Grail mysteries, right? When you go back, and I don't remember exactly what the dates are, I'll talk about that at another time, but you've got the bards and the poets and, these plays and the troubadours. It was during this time of Renaissance when everything was moving and opening and aspiring to divine love, right? Through art, through music, through writing, through nature. So it was like the divinity was pouring down through our consciousness, being enlivened at that time as points of awakening, right? And so hearts were opening. There was chivalry. There was, this very distinct masculine and feminine expressions that were desiring higher love. And even during some of those instances, like courtly love, right? There were many of these relationships that were deemed appropriate for, let's say, a married woman in the court to have a companion, not sexual, but definitely a companion that allowed a deeper bond and these feelings through writing and poetry and music to be experienced. And so we can see over every era, there's some way that the masculine and feminine dance is taking place. Now, I'm talking about it in these terms because it is easier. You can resonate with it however is appropriate for you. We are all, no matter how we're oriented, seeking love, opening to love. And clearly we have been shifting the orientations of the expression of masculine and feminine within the culture for decades, right? But that's not really, I don't go off in all of that. That's not my area. But what is my area is just recognizing that these expressions that are elemental expressions, that are polar expressions of life, and then they become embodied expressions on how we come into relationship and bonding and union with one another. So love is something that we are always moving towards. And as we begin to move through these, these teachings that I'm going to be rolling out on relationship and doing mentorship, if that's something that calls to you, we're going to be recognizing that it's time that we heal and resolve our fears of love, our fears of intimacy, our fears of heartbreak, right? Our fears of the pain of heartbreak, our fears of our stories that actually create more of the heartbreak because our stories are fear-based, based on our wounding, based on our inability to really, not across the board, everybody is at different phases and stages, but to be able to cultivate deeper intimacy and safety within vulnerability. And guess what? It begins within each of us individually. And this is where the twin flame teachings come in. Because the twin flames, or the twin souls, carry the coding that they do, their blueprint is to help humanity to move through these deeper stages of coming in and being able to rest into union, being able to rest into sacred union, to be a part of divine union. So I'm going to do a video also on kind of this cool experience of what we can get a visceral, if you go along with the reading, a visceral transmission of a divine union expression. That's at the highest octaves, right? When our connection with life, with the divine, with God, is just so embodied, and we're swimming in it, and it is swimming in us, and that it is love, right? And we have higher octaves of love that we are able to evolve into now. And if you go back to some of the videos on divine, walking a path towards divine union, I have some downloads that I was getting from my guides about the evolution and the octaves that we're moving through as we evolve, from personal love to unconditional divine love, then even into higher expressions of love that are so impersonal that we haven't really accessed them yet. They're almost more of like a galactic love. Not almost, that's what I was told. So as we're moving through this, we're using the templates of divine, or of twin souls, to ground what it is that we're doing, because they are teaching us, right? The twins are working on such deep and subtle elemental levels, etheric levels, before they even come into physical union. Now, most of us, if you follow twin flame teachings, we know that they've already come into, connection in the physical at some point. And then, right, it kind of like divides, and there becomes what has been the earlier stages of, I think, the twin flame teachings, which I never really resonated with because I was already being shown the inner path, right, of love, of self-love, of self-honor, to move into higher stages of love. So the initial trajectory and path of the twins was really very much about the runner and the chaser. And the runner and the chaser, and usually it's the feminine that's running towards the masculine, that's running away. And while I definitely, I recognize that pattern, not from this stage of my life, but I certainly know that pattern from the very beginning of my activation, and I'll do a video over on Patreon on that specifically. That was decades ago. That helped me to understand a little bit what was really happening. But now we've evolved so much through that because we recognize that this is actually an internal process. It is an inner union process, and it is an alchemical process. And the highest expression of twin flame unions has everything to do with working from the energetics, healing different timelines and karmic patterns guided by the divine, in whatever way that shows up for some people, and gradually it becoming more and more embodied. So I'll talk about that in a different video. However, these teachings are not new. These teachings, as I mentioned in the last video, go back in time. But they aren't written. They're living teachings. And there are a few of us who are teaching these living teachings because we're carrying the coding for it. And the path that we walk is the embodiment of these templates and these codes and living them out as they come down into the physical plane. My job, what I love doing, is breaking things down so that they're practical and they're doable. And we can take the loftiness and really the challenge of grasping this mentally and bring it down to earth. So I'm hoping that you're going to join me on this path of love, of opening to love, of remembering your wholeness as a being of love. Because ideally, this is what our journey towards divine union is teaching us. It is remembering our wholeness. It is remembering our divinity. It is remembering that we are already in the sacred marriages when we're cultivating our relationship with the feminine and the masculine and the elemental expressions and the, Mother Earth, Heavenly Father, right? This is a love story that we are living. So if you know, or if you are recognizing that, wow, yes, relationship is a powerful path for you to come into your fullest, and I hope that you join me. Most of that, we'll see, is going to be over on Patreon, and I haven't gotten that tier written up yet, but I'm going to be doing it maybe today or tomorrow, so that foundation is already laid, right? So yeah, where are you at with love? Where are you in your romantic relationships? Are you single? Great. That's kind of an easy path, believe it or not. Sometimes easier than if you're already married. Are you in a time of choosing to be alone? Are you longing for partnership? Are you in karmic relationships that really aren't going to move beyond where you're at, based on both people wanting to learn and grow and flourish and evolve and become more aligned and deepened, right? Or are you already in a conscious relationship where you are with somebody and you're working through your woundings and your divisions consciously, and you're processing and you know how to move through those? Or are you in a sacred partnership, right? Where you're wanting to go deeper. You're wanting to come into that inner marriage, right? That inner union alongside a beloved who also is going through that inner union. These all dance together, but it's important to know where you are. And you know, for me, my devotion is to love, right? Is to being freed up in my being to be able to love freely and openly and vulnerably without fears, without past regrets and pain and shame or mistakes or confusions or any of that, right? So, and then ultimately it comes into divine union. So I'm going to end here. And if this calls to you, I would love to have you subscribe here so that you get notified. You can join as a free member to begin with if you'd like over on Patreon so you get notified. And join me in this new renaissance of remembering the love that we are and experiencing that higher love. I'm calling it holy love. Coming home to holy love. And what does that mean for you? What does that mean for humanity? What does that mean for all of our relationships? All right, that's it. Many blessings and much love. Bye.